Part 1. The Calling. The air in Sao Paulo was thick with heat and haste. Between the honks of impatient taxis and the flickering of neon lights, 32-year-old Ethan Cross sat alone in a dim cafe, staring at a crumpled postcard. On it, a faded image of the Amazon River shimmered under a canopy of green, and scribbled on the back in shaky handwriting were the words, "Come find me. It's real. Uncle Leo." Uncle Leo had vanished nearly 20 years ago during an expedition to study rare plant species. No one heard from him again, until now. This cryptic message had arrived last week in Ethan's mailbox with no return address, no postmark, just the card, like it had been hand-delivered by the wind. For most of his life, Ethan had buried himself in architecture. Buildings made sense, blueprints didn't lie, but lately, something in him had cracked open. Nightmares, no, visions, haunted him. A giant serpent with eyes like molten gold, a temple overgrown with vines whispering his name, and a voice deep and echoing, "Come home." It wasn't logic that made him book a flight to Manaus. It wasn't reason that had him sitting now, backpack stuffed with gear, passport tucked under a half-finished novel. It was a pull, a call, and he couldn't ignore it any longer. That night, under a blood-orange moon, Ethan boarded a riverboat headed deep into the rainforest. The locals called it a barca da serpente, the serpent's barge. Most avoided it, whispering tales of disappearances and ghost lights dancing over the water. But the old boatman, a silent man with eyes like obsidian stones, simply nodded. When Ethan said, "I'm looking for someone." For 2 days they traveled. The trees grew taller, their roots like twisted limbs clawing at the river's edge. Birds with colors Ethan had never seen screamed in the canopy above. At night, the jungle hummed with 1,000 heartbeats. The boatman never spoke. He only watched Ethan, like he knew something Ethan didn't. On the third night, the fog came. Thick, swirling, and unnatural, shapes danced in the mist, shapes too tall, too thin, too wrong. And then Ethan heard it. A voice, low and melodic, speaking a language he didn't know, but somehow understood. Child of stone and silence. "Why do you return?" The boat rocked violently. Ethan grabbed the edge, heart hammering, eyes darting, but there was nothing, just mist, until it parted. And there, standing on the water, barefoot and aglow with green light, was a girl no older than 12. Her hair flowed like riverweed and her eyes were glowing orbs of emerald fire. She smiled. "You're late." Then everything went black. Part 2. The Temple of Echoes. When Ethan opened his eyes, the world had changed. The riverboat was gone. So was the boatman, the fog, and the roar of the Amazon. He was lying on soft moss in the middle of a lush glade, surrounded by ancient trees that hummed as if alive. Birds with feathers like shards of crystal flitted through the air, and from somewhere in the distance a slow, rhythmic drumming echoed, ancient and haunting. "Finally," said a small voice. Ethan sat up too fast, his head spinning. The girl from the river stood a few feet away, but now she looked different. Her skin shimmered like sunlight on water, and strange markings glowed faintly on her arms. "Who are you?" Ethan asked, his voice hoarse. The girl tilted her head. "My name is Ayla. I'm the guardian of the Echo Gate." "The what?" She pointed behind him, and Ethan froze. Just beyond the glade, carved into the side of a cliff draped in vines and moss, was a temple. No, not just a temple. It was alive. Vines pulsed like veins, flowers opened and closed like breathing lungs, and faint golden light seeped from the cracks in its stone. At the entrance, 2 massive serpent statues coiled around the archway, their eyes glowing like fire. He whispered, "I've seen this before, in my dreams." Ayla smiled. "Because you've been here before, in another life." "What?" "You're not just an architect, Ethan. You are a weaver." He blinked. "A what?" "A weaver of paths. A traveler between what is and what could be. This jungle remembers you, even if you have forgotten yourself." The temple called to him. Ethan could feel it in his bones. Each step he took toward it felt like stepping deeper into a forgotten part of himself. When he reached the threshold, A warmth spread through his chest, and the vines curled back like welcoming arms. Inside, the temple was vast and silent. Light poured from cracks in the stone ceiling above, illuminating walls covered in ancient carvings, scenes of men turning into animals, women rising from rivers, and a tree with roots that reached into the stars. Ayla's voice echoed beside him. This is the Temple of Echoes. It holds memories, echoes of all who have passed through it, yours too. As Ethan ran his fingers over one of the carvings, he gasped. The stone shifted under his touch, the images moving like waves. One scene pulled him in, a man who looked just like him kneeling before a great serpent with eyes of gold. That's impossible. No, Ayla said. It's destiny. Suddenly the chamber began to tremble. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the carvings lit up like fire. From the shadows a voice slithered through the air, deep, old, and filled with venom. You should not have returned, Weaver. Ethan turned. A massive serpent, unlike any he'd seen, coiled around the inner altar. Its scales shimmered like oil, and its gaze pierced straight through him. This was the being from his dreams. Ayla stepped in front of him. He is not your enemy. Not yet, the serpent hissed. That depends on what he chooses. Ethan's heart thundered. What do you mean? The serpent's golden eyes narrowed. The jungle is changing. Darkness grows at its roots. If you do not remember who you are, all will be lost. The chamber rumbled again, louder now. You have 3 days, the serpent said. 3 days to awaken the memory, or the echo gate will close forever. With a flash of light, the serpent vanished. Ayla turned to him, solemn. Ethan, she said, this is only the beginning. The jungle holds the truth. But it will not. Give it easily. And outside, the first drop of rain fell, warm red like blood. The countdown had begun. Part 3. The Forgotten Map. The rain did not fall like a storm. It wept, slow, deliberate, and tinged with crimson. Ethan stood in the temple doorway, eyes lifted to the sky that now glowed with an unnatural hue, a faint shimmer of red and gold, swirling like ink in water. Ayla handed him a leaf, large and translucent. Hold this above your head. It will keep the jungle from seeing you too clearly. He raised an eyebrow. The jungle sees? She didn't smile. It sees more than you think, and right now you are still a stranger to it. Together they descended into the underbrush, where the light barely pierced through the tangled canopy. The roots beneath Ethan's boots seemed to shift subtly, as though rearranging themselves in secret. Every so often he heard whispers, not voices but memories, like the jungle itself was speaking in forgotten tongues. They walked for what felt like hours, time warping as birds called in reverse and trees grew backwards. Ethan's watch had stopped ticking the moment he left the temple. Eventually, Ayla led him to a stone platform overgrown with moss. In the center stood an obelisk, cracked and weathered, half swallowed by the earth. It pulsed faintly. This is where your map is hidden, she said. My map. The Weaver's Path, a map not made of ink and paper but of memory and essence. Ethan frowned. I don't remember making a map. You didn't, Ayla replied, kneeling before the obelisk. But your past self did. As she pressed her palm to the stone, it responded with a low hum. Patterns of light etched themselves into the air above the platform. Symbols, pathways, rivers that curved like snakes, and clusters of glowing runes Ethan didn't understand, but somehow recognized. One symbol pulsed brighter than the rest. A circle of fire with a tree in its center. That's the heartwood, Ayla said. The center of the jungle. The source of all. Ethan stepped closer. And that's where I need to go? Ayla hesitated. Yes, but the map is incomplete. Pieces of your essence were scattered when you forgot. To reach the heartwood, you must first retrieve them. She pointed to 3 symbols on the map, each flickering. One lies with the river oracle, another in the dreaming hollow, and the last is held by the echo beast. Sounds cozy, Ethan muttered. But Ayla didn't. Laugh. They won't recognize you. Not until you remember who you truly are. Ethan felt a strange pull in his chest, a yearning like something inside him had been asleep too long. I'll go, he said. Ayla looked at him for a long moment, as if searching for something in his eyes. "Then take this," she whispered, pulling a small totem from around her neck. It was carved from obsidian, shaped like an eye surrounded by roots. "It will glow when you're close to the truth." He took it gently, and the moment his fingers brushed the totem, the jungle around them shifted. The colors deepened, the sounds dulled, and a new path opened in the undergrowth, narrow and glowing faintly. "The river oracle lies beyond that trail," Ayla said. "I can't go further with you. Only weavers can walk that path." Ethan turned toward the trail, heart pounding. "Wait," he asked, turning back. "Who was I before all this?" Ayla met his gaze. "You were not just a man. You were a bridge between realms, the last of the memory weavers, the one who walked both time and spirit." The jungle roared in the distance, as if agreeing, and with that, Ethan stepped into the forest, alone again. But this time something in him had awakened, not just memories, but purpose. Part 4. The River Oracle. The trail that opened before Ethan shimmered with a faint glow, like moonlight trapped in mist. Every step he took pulsed with memory. Trees leaned inward, whispering secrets. Roots writhed softly underfoot, guiding but never grabbing. It wasn't a path he walked, it was a test. Hours passed, or maybe days. Time flowed strangely here. Eventually he emerged onto a riverbank unlike any he had seen. The water was not blue or green, but silver, like liquid glass. Reflections danced across its surface, not of the world around him, but of things hidden within. Memories, fears, fragments of dreams. He saw flashes. A young boy reading under blankets. A teenage Ethan building sandcastles shaped like temples. A woman's face, warm, kind, forgotten. "She was important," he whispered. "But why can't I remember?" "Because memory is not a line," came a voice, soft and melodic. "It is a river, and like all rivers, it chooses its own course." Ethan turned. There, seated atop a boulder rising from the water, was a woman, though not quite human. Her hair flowed like the river itself, her skin translucent, as if woven from mist and moonlight. Her eyes shimmered with countless colors, and her fingers left ripples in the air as she moved them. "You are the River Oracle," Ethan said. She bowed her head slightly. "And you are the one who forgot. The weaver without thread." He stepped closer. "I came to retrieve a piece of myself, something I left behind." The oracle's gaze turned serious. "Then you must offer something in return." "Offer what?" "Truth." She extended her hand, and in it appeared a mirror made of flowing water. "Look," she said, "but know this, truth always costs." Ethan took the mirror, and as he stared, the surface shifted. He saw himself, not as he was, but as he had been, in a world that wasn't this one. A great hall of light, a gathering of weavers, robed in gold and green. Ethan among them, holding the obsidian totem aloft, his voice echoing in a language now forgotten. "I will go. I will guard the gate between memory and time." He had chosen exile, to forget himself so that the balance of the world would remain intact. The serpent, the temple, the jungle, all threads of a sacrifice made long ago. He staggered back, the mirror slipping through his fingers and dissolving into mist. "I gave up everything," he whispered. The oracle nodded. "And now you must choose. Return to who you were or remain as you are." Ethan clenched his fists. "If I return, what then?" "You will remember. And once you remember, the jungle will no longer test you. It will follow." With trembling hands, he reached forward. The oracle pressed her palm to his chest. In an instant, warmth flooded him. The obsidian totem at his neck flared with light, and a memory, real, deep, and ancient, flashed through his mind. The heartwood tree burning, Ayla screaming, the serpent weeping golden tears. His knees buckled, but the oracle caught him. "Take this," she whispered, placing a small river stone in his hand. It pulsed faintly. "A shard of your truth. It will guide you." As he turned to leave, the oracle spoke again. "One path found, two remain. But beware, weaver. Something stirs in the hollow. Something old. Something broken." Ethan stepped back onto the glowing trail. The jungle shifted and the wind carried a whisper, cold, harsh, and cruel. You cannot outrun the hollow. Part 5. The Dreaming Hollow. The path to the hollow was darker than the rest. Trees stood taller, their canopies so dense no sunlight pierced through. The air was thick, not just with humidity, but with something heavier, like sorrow that had taken root. Each breath Ethan took felt like inhaling memory, heavy and raw. The river stone the oracle had given him pulsed softly in his pocket, but its glow dimmed with every step he took. He passed flowers that closed when he neared, vines that hissed like snakes, and eyes that blinked from within the bark of ancient trees. At last, the jungle opened into a clearing, surrounded by twisted trees with no leaves, their limbs reaching, skyward like hands frozen in agony. In the center lay a crater, a sunken grove where the earth itself seemed to breathe. Mist pooled thickly there, tinted violet. Ethan descended, boots crunching on dead leaves and cracked bones. This was the Dreaming Hollow. He knew without being told. A whisper greeted him, so faint it could have been the wind. "Why do you return?" Ethan turned, expecting another spirit, another guide, but instead he saw himself, or rather a twisted reflection, darker, thinner, eyes sunken, skin pale like moonlight. "I am what you left behind," it said, "the part of you you buried." Ethan stood still. "Who are you?" The reflection smiled, a hollow, aching thing. "I am doubt. I am fear. I am the part of you that remembered what forgetting was supposed to protect." Suddenly, the ground around them shifted. The hollow was no longer just a place. It became a dream, a nightmare. Images rose from the fog. A crumbling bridge, a woman's scream, fire devouring a village. Ethan fell to his knees as memories surged, memories he never knew were his. He had failed before. As a weaver, in a past life, he had chosen wrong. The serpent, the jungle, even Ayla, they had trusted him, and he had faltered. Let the gate collapse. "Let the heartwood burn, I couldn't stop it," Ethan whispered. The reflection circled him. "But you ran, that's why the temple cursed you to forget." Ethan's breath came in short gasps. "I wanted to forget. And now you want to remember. After all the ruin." Ethan closed his eyes. The oracle's words returned. "Truth always costs." He stood slowly. "I may have failed once, but I won't run again." The reflection stopped. "Then prove it." It rushed at him. There was no time to dodge. The figure slammed into him and they merged. Not a fight but a surrender. Ethan let the darkness in, the shame, the failure, the grief. It seared through him like fire. And then, calm. A voice echoed within. "You are whole." The mist lifted. At the center of the hollow now floated a seed, glowing gently. Ethan reached out and took it. The moment it touched his skin, the stone in his pocket glowed brightly again. A second piece found. As Ethan climbed out of the hollow, the trees seemed less twisted. The air, lighter. But in the shadows behind him, something shifted. Not part of the dream, not part of the jungle. Something ancient had awakened, and it was watching. Part 6, the Echo Beast. The jungle didn't sleep after the hollow. It watched. Leaves no longer rustled with random winds. They leaned in, listening. Trees curved subtly in his direction. The jungle was alive, not metaphorically but truly deeply sentient. Ethan felt it. And it felt him. With the river stone in his pocket and the glowing seed of the hollow nestled in a leather pouch across his chest, Ethan pressed on, drawn toward the final location on the map, the place Ayla had whispered with the most dread. The lair of the Echo Beast. No one had told him what the Echo Beast truly was. Some said it was a creature made of sound, a spirit that hunted memory. Others said it was a guardian, bound by sorrow, cursed to protect the path to the heartwood from those not yet whole. Whatever it was, it knew he was coming. As the sun bled across the treetops, Ethan arrived at the edge of a cliff where trees broke apart, revealing a vast cavern carved into the earth. Mist swirled up from its depths, cold and dry, unnatural. A low hum vibrated the air like a bass note stretched too far. It pulsed through his bones. The moment he stepped onto the stone floor of the cavern, the air changed. No jungle, no birdsong, just echoes of his own footsteps, of breath, of thought. He walked deeper, and the light from above vanished completely. Then, without warning, a whisper sliced through the dark. "You do not belong here." The voice was Ethan's, but not from his mouth. He turned. Nothing. Just shadows. Then the floor beneath him cracked like ice, and he fell, down into a vast dome of stone, lit only by bioluminescent moss and glowing vines that pulsed like veins. At the center stood a creature unlike anything he had seen, 10 feet tall, limbs like smoke woven through obsidian. Its face was a void, and from its chest spiraled dozens of mouths, speaking, whispering, crying, laughing, screaming. All in his voice, the echo beast. It moved without moving. Each step was an echo of another. It didn't growl or charge. See, it sang, a song of every memory Ethan had forgotten. His first kiss, the moment his mother died, the last laugh with his brother before the accident. He staggered, overwhelmed. The beast's song wasn't meant to kill. It was meant to drown, to lose himself in the voices that were once his. Then one whisper pierced the noise, a voice unlike the rest. "You are not your past." It was Ayla, or his memory of her. Clarity returned for a moment. Ethan pulled the river stone from his pocket and the seed from the hollow. The two items pulsed in unison. The echo beast froze. Ethan stepped forward, speaking calmly. "I am a weaver. I have remembered what was lost. I am not afraid of myself anymore." The beast twisted, writhing, shrinking. The echoes grew frantic. "We are you. Without us, you are hollow." Ethan lifted the totem Ayla gave him, and it blazed like a star. "No," he whispered, "you are part of me, but I choose who I become." The light filled the cavern. The beast let out one final sound, not a scream but a sigh. Then it dissolved into thousands of motes of light, each one carrying a whisper of Ethan's life. They swirled around him and merged into his chest. From the spot where the beast had stood, a glowing root burst from the ground. Twisting upward, it shaped itself into a staff. Ethan took it. It was warm, familiar, woven from memory and truth. 3. Pieces now complete. River Dream Echo. The Heartwood awaited. But in the silence that followed, a chill swept through the chamber. Not from the past, but the future. Something unnatural now stirred in the roots of the jungle. Something that knew Ethan had returned, and it was waking. Part 7. The Path to the Heartwood. The jungle did not greet him this time. It watched in silence. Ethan stood at the edge of the great cavern, the staff in his hand still warm from the remnants of the echo beast's essence. The air above the trees shimmered, and the map burned itself into his mind, no longer as a vision but as instinct. He didn't need direction anymore. His feet knew the way, because the jungle knew him now. Each step toward the Heartwood was a step deeper into the soul of the Amazon. The trees bent, but not in fear, in reverence. The roots parted for him. Even the wind slowed, holding its breath. He passed shrines overrun by moss, their stones still humming with the language of weavers. He saw spirits watching him, some with the eyes of jaguars, others with the wings of serpents. They did not speak, but their presence was unmistakable. The jungle was waking up, and so was something else. At twilight he reached a glade where time stood still. A single stone stood at the center, cracked down the middle and glowing with soft white light. Ethan placed his palm on it. The jungle opened, literally. The earth groaned and trees pulled their roots from the ground. They shifted, bowed, and cleared a corridor of golden light. To a path that shimmered with memory and ancient power. The Heartwood was calling. Ethan stepped through. The path led into a forest unlike any he'd known. Trees hundreds of feet tall, their trunks etched with spirals of glowing runes. The air vibrated with soundless chants. The deeper he went, the more he felt it, a pulse slow and strong like a heartbeat under the ground. And then he saw it, the Heartwood tree. It rose like a mountain from the center of a lake, so still it mirrored stars Ethan couldn't see in the sky. The tree's bark was gold-veined, its branches spread wider than a cathedral. Its leaves glowed faintly, each one like a tiny lantern, but at the base of the tree, a wound, charred roots, black rot creeping along the water's edge. He stepped closer, and the rot responded. It pulsed, hissed, breathed. A shape rose from the roots, tall and thin and impossibly old, a figure cloaked in shadows. Its face was hidden, but Ethan felt its presence like frost in his blood. "You were warned," it said. "You left, you forgot, and now you think you deserve to return." Ethan steadied his grip on the staff. "I didn't return for me. I came because the heartwood is dying, and I won't run again." The figure laughed, a sound like cracking ice. "You think your memories make you whole? You think remembering makes you strong?" It raised a hand, and the lake exploded. Water became wind. Wind became flame. The sky cracked open, and Ethan was flung backward, tumbling into a storm of memory and pain. He landed hard against the roots of the heartwood, gasping for breath. Then a voice, not from the figure, but from the tree. "Stand, Weaver. You are not alone." Light burst from the staff in his hand. The seed from the hollow rose into the air. The river stone followed. The light from both fused, spiraling into the staff. A pulse of power erupted, and from the lake rose Isla, carried by roots like arms. She stood between Ethan and the shadowed figure. "He has returned," she said, her voice like thunder. "And the jungle remembers," the figure hissed. "Then he will fall with it." Roots shot up from the ground, dark and sharp, but the heartwood responded. So did Ethan. He lifted the staff. It blazed with all he had remembered: river, dream, echo. He slammed it into the earth. A shockwave tore through the glade. The dark roots burned. The shadow screamed. And for the first time in centuries, the heartwood tree began to heal. The rot receded. The lake calmed. The sky mended. The shadow was gone, and Ethan collapsed to his knees, exhausted, but whole. Ayla knelt beside him. "You did it," she said. "No," Ethan murmured. "We did." And above them the heartwood pulsed once more. Alive. Awake. Part 8. The Weaver's Legacy. The light that poured from the heartwood tree did not burn, it blessed. It reached into every corner of the jungle, weaving through vines and stones, rivers and skies. Life surged. Old spirits stirred. Flowers bloomed, where there had only been ash. Ethan sat in silence beneath the great tree, his hand still clutching the staff. But it no longer felt like a tool. It felt like an extension of himself, like a forgotten limb now remembered. Across the water, Isla stood barefoot on the lake's surface, untouched by its ripples. The jungle whispered her name, a lullaby of leaf and wind. "You were meant to forget," she said, walking toward him, "so you could learn again, not as a guardian, not as a god, but as a man." Ethan nodded. "And now?" "Now," Isla said softly, "you choose." The heartwood pulsed once, gently. A deep, warm tone echoed outward, like a question. Stay or leave. Remain here as a weaver reborn, one with the jungle and its timeless guardianship, or return to the world you came from, the cities, the cold cement, the lives that still needed, healing beyond the forest's edge. Ethan's mind returned to São Paulo, to the grey skyline, to his apartment filled with unfinished sketches and books he never finished. But he also remembered her, the woman in the vision. Her face now clearer. Layla, his sister, the one he'd buried in memory when their world broke. He remembered the hospital, the machines, her last words. Keep building, but not just buildings. He had run from grief by losing himself in stone. Now, he saw it. He hadn't come to the jungle for his uncle, he had come for himself. "I need to go back," he whispered. "There's something I need to build." Ayla smiled, sad and proud. "Then take this." From her chest she drew a single leaf from the heartwood, golden and warm. "Plant it where healing is needed most. It will remember." Ethan took it. The moment it touched his palm, the jungle shuddered, and the light engulfed him. He awoke on the banks of the Amazon. Sunlight streamed through the canopy. The river flowed gently. The serpent's barge was there waiting. The old boatman stood at the helm. This time he nodded, not as a stranger, but as an old friend. The return journey was quiet. No whispers, no illusions, just peace. When Ethan arrived, in São Paulo the streets were just as loud, the buildings still grey. But something had changed. He had changed. He moved into an old orphanage on the edge of the city, Layla's favourite place. With the heartwood's leaf, he planted a single tree in the courtyard. Children began to visit, then artists, then healers. He built a centre not of cement but of memory, a sanctuary for those who had forgotten who they were. And the tree, it grew. Its leaves glowed faintly at night, and sometimes, if you stood close enough, you could hear it breathing and whispering. You are not alone.